Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Totally True News. I'm your host, John Nobles, and our top story tonight is Chinese chicanery in U.S. airspace. China-U.S. tensions have been on the rise for decades as the two international superpowers compete for dominance. Their rivalry is primarily seen in the technology industry and geopolitical battles, particularly involving Taiwan. This rivalry has predictably led to each side participating in dubious machinations to gain an advantage over the other. Such activities primarily include gathering of intel through spying. Now we'll go to our Totally True field correspondent, Constantine Savan, at the site of the crash.
Thank you, John. A little overview of the situation right now is that there is a potential spy balloon from China that was spotted in U.S. airspace. The balloon first entered U.S. airspace above Alaska, around the Aleutian Islands, and since has been spotted flying over notable military bases. It is still unknown whether or not this balloon is a genuine attempt at espionage or is merely a stray civilian aircraft. However, our correspondents at President Biden's office have informed us that the president will move forward with shooting down the aircraft after some hesitancy. The current extent to which this is a threat to our national security is still unknown, as we don't know the instruments of the balloon, but our government is diligently working to examine the rubble and get an idea for what the stakes are right now. Regardless, the country is diligently watching our government actions and the FBI's investigation right now. To take a look at party stances regarding this issue, conservatives were pushing for an immediate takedown of the balloon since it entered U.S. airspace, and have been highly critical of the Biden administration's hesitancy with taking down this aircraft, especially after it was spotted above Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. They believe that this incident is humiliating to the country and an embarrassment of U.S. national defense. As for Democrat opinions, a couple representatives such as David Scott and John Tester agree with Republicans and do believe that the balloon was shot down far too late. However, a vast majority do agree with the president's hesitancy and believe that waiting for the balloon to be shot down in a recoverable location rather than immediately out somewhere in the middle of nowhere was the best course of action, and that genuinely this balloon does not pose that great of a threat to national security. After taking a look at what the different parties believe, it is also important to understand what the balloon itself feels about this situation. Mr. Balloon, what do you have to say for yourself?
Thank you,
sir. And now back to you, John.
Before the spy balloon's appearance over the United States, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had a diplomatic trip planned to China. But upon the surfacing of the balloon, Blinken canceled the trip. CNN contributor David Andelman believes this was one of the intended outcomes of China's actions. He believes that China was not interested in improving diplomatic relations with the United States, and thus he believes a partial motive for China's actions involving the balloon were to force Blinken to cancel his trip. From MSNBC, John Bateman believes the spy balloon gathered little data and that its dangers were overhyped. Rather, he believes it highlights China's clumsiness in regard to foreign diplomacy. After criticizing many Republican politicians who claimed the balloon was a danger to national security, Bateman said that the balloon likely did not gather much information. He then shifts the topic to discuss the spy balloon was a failure on China's part because it did not accomplish much itself and only showed the clumsy manner in which the Chinese Communist Party conducts its business. Overall, Bateman believes the balloon did little except embarrass the Chinese. Mike Pompeo believes the spy balloon incident showed Biden's weakness as the leader of the free world. He believes Xi Jinping was testing Biden's strength to see how far the Chinese could go before sparking a response. The Fox News contributor states that Biden had a weak response to the spy balloon and that it only further invited Chinese aggression. Pompeo continues by contrasting the president to former President Ronald Reagan. He makes the comparison that Reagan displayed great strength, which resulted in peace, while Biden demonstrated a weak response, and this will only invite further aggression, not peace. And now back to Constantine to discuss the impact of this incident.
Thank you, John. Besides making a literal impact on U.S. soil, this incident has heightened concerns about national security. The public and government have now become aware of the potential threats of the new modern age and how natural barriers are no longer secure enough. Currently, the FBI is investigating the capability of this potential spy balloon, and we don't fully know the extent to which information was gathered. However, if one thing is to be sure, is that this incident has gotten our nation's national security forces in full swing. And now back to John for predictions and our closing statement.
I personally predict that the spy balloon incident will only disparage the already fragile relationship between the US and China. From a purely diplomatic standpoint, the two governments certainly only grew further apart, and distaste between the two was amplified. From the view of the people, I believe the majority of people did not agree with Biden's handling of the situation, and I think this will affect his candidacy in 2024. Furthermore, I believe almost every American citizen grew disdain for the Chinese government. As citizens of such a great country, we have an urge to protect our country, and we feel threatened when a suspicious foreign invader enters our country without warning nor adequate explanation. Due to these reasons, I predict the American public will only grow more and more distaste for the Chinese government. Thank you for watching this edition of Totally True News, and make sure to tune in next week for some more Totally True News.